This is a lot less heavy than this thing. All right, C-stands are pretty substantial, but you don't want to take them everywhere, and you don't want to necessarily use them for everything because sometimes it's just overkill. You can carry a whole lot of these in a bag, throw it in your car if you're not going to do something that requires a C-stand. So we call this a spreader stand. Instead of being made out of steel, it's mostly aluminum and plastic. It's called a spreader stand because it works like this. I'm going to make sure that that's a little bit loose on top, and I'm going to spread all of these at the same time. You can push it down in order to make sure that your stand is as stable as possible. You want to make all three of these as wide as they can possibly go. Your stand is just a lot more stable that way. This one has risers a lot like the C-stand, except it's a little more simple, and there's something a little bit different on top. Instead of a baby pin, this is called a top stud. And on more lightweight stands, you're going to have something that looks a lot more like this top stud. This one is aluminum. Sometimes they're brass. One thing about this is, in addition to a top stud, it also has this threaded stud on the top. This is a very specific size of thread that you'll see in the industry a lot, especially on mounting equipment. It's 1/4 inch across, and there are 20 threads per inch. So it's called a 1/4-20 thread. If you need to go get something at the hardware store to fit one of these, you're looking for 1/4-20 hardware. There are a lot of pieces of production equipment, especially small accessories, that you can attach to a 1/4-20 stud. This is just a little LED light panel. A lot of times you put it on top of a camera or near your camera if you're shooting something really close. And this is threading directly on that 1/4-20 stud. I can put kind of like microphone mounts or GoPro mounts or all kinds of things on 1/4-20 studs like that. This LED lamp, I can just use one of these pretty ubiquitous Sony batteries, pop it on there, get a little bit of light close to something I'm working on. Did that blast you too much? No. It's not that bright. All right, I'm removing that one. And we're going to look at a different kind of a mount. Part of the reason I have you do this production skill station is so that you can be familiar with a couple of other kinds of mounts. All right. Here's an adapter that'll fit on this top stud. I think this would also go on a baby pin. This would probably go and tighten onto something that's kind of a smaller rod if you needed it to. But here I go. Right on down to the top stud. I'll tighten that. And this has a little bit of kind of a tilt to it. Now what I've got on the top of this is a special kind of connection. And you can see that it has a kind of a hole for a little bit of a plate to go in. Okay, this is almost the same kind of connection that you'll see on top of a lot of camcorders. This is called a cold shoe mount. With a cold shoe, you could usually do something like put on an accessory microphone, and usually there is kind of a wheel that you have to turn down to tighten your accessory on the cold shoe. Now it's not coming out. This one I would have to go out from the audio into an input in this camera for it to work. But some other things work differently than that. This camera has what's called a hot shoe. Ooh. So the hot shoe actually has an electrical connection so that you can put on an accessory that's powered by the camera. A lot of DSLR cameras that have this kind of profile will have hot shoe mounts so that you can power a flash, but some other cameras will communicate with a microphone via that same kind of mount. Mm-hmm. Now this one is not a hot shoe, it's still a cold shoe. So I'll show you how to put something on a cold shoe. Hey, here's a microphone on a little shock mount. Say we wanted to put that close to our subject or something. So all you got to do is take that little plate, slide it into the kind of teeth of the cold shoe mount. This one I have to tighten a little bit, but most cold shoe stuff, you'll usually just have to tighten this wheel to get it to stay on there. And that's a cold shoe. The last thing on the checklist is just to break down your equipment. So if you can do that, if you can demonstrate that, you can get through another station on your production skills checklist. Thanks for paying attention.